course. 1 second here. Welcome to the free astrotheology course. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. All right, so we should finish up this chapter today. I'm going to do a review. I really enjoyed this chapter because it's so insightful as to what's happening in terms of the operations that our enemy is deploying against us. Okay, now these are both psychic or psychological operations, warfare. The primary mechanism is, of course, religion. Just the same way as it was hundreds of years ago, the operation was religion. But instead of being psychological, primarily, it was physical, hot warfare. All right? And as Christianity has taken control, and as the Islamic religion has taken control, it's shifted from being a physical hot war to a cold war, psychic attacks primarily. All right. In other words, the priestly class told the Christians to put on their complete suit of armor, etc. I believe it's Ephesians 6, and to go fight. Right? Doctrine of discovery, etc. Go take the lands, the governmental structures of the Moors, the autochthonous, indigenous Moors, all of us, regardless of skin tone, who are sprung from the soil, put us in perpetual servitude through getting us or taking advantage of the fact that we had abandoned the principles of our ancient foremothers and forefathers, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, or stated in a different way, we were breaking the Most High's commandments. Okay? Which, according to nature, our contract with ourselves on this earthly plane tells us that we must respect and live in harmony with nature, which means natural law and natural law principles, okay? Which we see in Exodus chapter 20. In religion, y'all call it the Ten Commandments, the Mosaic Covenant. We see it in the terms of the contract, etc. I always like to talk about Deuteronomy chapter 28, 15 through 68, which are the curses, or those penalties, those tangible penalties, sufferings, losses. See, not things that you would lose that are not tangible. These are tangibles. Okay, these are, in other words, these are birthrights. But you would also lose some intangibles. For example, titles. Titles that connect you to your land. Titles that connect you to the land to demonstrate, to project that you're the sovereign of the land. You lose those. I'm talking about the curses. Deuteronomy chapter 28, the curses. And you would be shipped off into religion. You'd be shipped out of your nationality. You'd be made into a Moorish subject. by way of the good ship Jesus, by way of religious or Christian doctrine, maritime admiralty, Catholic, Christian canon, corporate policy. In other words, the Gospels. Those God spells that are curses on you, but good or God spells for those who are in the secret societies, the inner house, who benefit, who get to live off of your estate, okay, where they have to keep you in a state of stupor and ignorance about knowing who you are, meaning your nationality, your bloodline, your heritage, your culture, your tradition, your language, how you do commerce, everything. According to Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68, the curses. All right, so you would be made to be nothing. Stateless people, no constitution, no constitutional protections, no treaty protections. Nothing but a stateless person. Cattle, chattel, goyim. Cattle, chattel, goyim. In need and want. And position to always and can only get what you need just for daily life from your enemies. And these are the hybrids. These are the hybrids and their Moorish minions. Okay? Now, as I mentioned, you would be subject to maritime admiralty, Catholic canon, Christian, or just Catholic canon, corporate policy, maritime law. Okay, so now as I mentioned, there's a picture of Jesus the Christ figure, standing in the sea. His feet, etc., are in the sea. He's a giant. The clouds are at his shoulders. And then there's a halo, which is symbolic of the S-U-N sun. So this is portraying JC the Christ figure as a giant that has to be none other than a Nephilim, Raphaim, Titan, however you want to call it. It's a hybrid. In the sea. All right, JC is in the sea. That's maritime or admiralty, maritime law, admiralty, maritime jurisdiction. All right? And then you see John, the Apostle John, standing on the shore, reaching up with a bill like this, giving it to the Christ figure, giving it to Jesus, who's reaching down and has a picture of a Moor in his palm right here. Okay, so Jesus Christ, the pretend man who never actually lived or walked or breathed a breath of air on the earthly plane. He's a caricature. Has a Moor in his hand and is reaching down, giving it to the Apostle John. Now remember, the apostles are in the inner house. The apostles are those who JC the Christ figure said, according to the parable, according to the story rather, those are the ones who Jesus told all of the mysteries of the secrets of the kingdom of God, the secrets of the kingdom of Zeus, of Odin, etc. Now again, let me take you back to the image of John holding up a bill, giving that bill to JC, the Christ figure. Okay, so that had to be what? Some sort of fiat. Because it definitely is not gold, and it's definitely not silver, which is quote unquote God's money. Y'all see what's happening here? So Jesus Christ, Christianity, religion, Islam has its basis in Christianity, is handing the Moors over to the secret societies as bondmen and bondwomen who are in a civilly dead condition. Why? Because Christianity is contraband. Christianity is contraband. Why is it contraband? Well, one, because you're in a different jurisdiction than what you're supposed to be in, right? All of you autochthonous or indigenous Moors, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, you're supposed to be following natural law. You're supposed to be in full life, rhythmic with nature, scholars of natural law, scholars of natural phenomena, scholars of geometry, scholars of astronomy and astrology, scholars of medicine, scholars of architecture, scholars of the 7 liberal arts. Rightful heirs of all land, resources, energies, terrestrial or earthly and cosmically, all commerce and all contracts. That's your birthright. But you have abandoned it, or your ancient foremothers and forefathers abandoned it, and they passed maritime Admiralty Catholic canon doctrine down to you instead of natural law. And here you are, all effed up in the body and the mind. Tell me I'm lying. Are you obese? You're effed up. Do you have psychological problems? You're effed up. Are you on chronic illness medications? All of these are due to living out of harmony with nature. Period. Okay, is your diet full of nothing but garbage? Things that have no nutritional value? If that's the case, you're out of harmony with nature. And the law of cause and effect is sending you a strong message through pains in your joints, cramping, headaches, dizziness, loss of your sense of smell, loss of your sense of taste, and other symptoms of mineral deficiencies. Other inflammatory related symptoms. Which is your body, which is nature, that governs all of these chemical reactions or enzymatic reactions. is screaming at you. Stop. Stop what you're doing. Stop eating this way. Stop eating so much. Stop. But you ignore nature. Why? Because you have been taught that you need to eat every day. And you've been indoctrinated to believe that those food groups that you learned about in school is the way you should eat. Unbeknownst to you, certain industries were setting you up for bad health and an early expiration date. So they set you up for a psychological and health crisis so that they could then make money off of you. Why? Because you're Goyim. In your civilly dead state, you're nothing but a farm animal for them to live off of you. Have you go to work and use what you earn to pay for medicine and hospital bills and doctor visits. Everybody see that? See, they bought you. The Apostle John is giving Jesus the bill of exchange or the purchase slip or whatever it is. You've been bought. Bought. All right? Now, isn't it strange that there's no hybrid in the poem, in that image, where JC has the more, clearly a more, in his hand? Okay, so just like a cow or a horse, a sheep, or any other farm animal, you have been bought. And you're being used. And because you're not present, because you're incompetent, and you're disrespecting your ancient foremothers and forefathers, your birthright is being enjoyed by someone other than you. And so you suffer, and your heirs suffer. All right? Why? Religion. Religion. So let's get into our lesson. So we're in the topic of the unjust judge. That's what I'm talking about. The unjust judge. I'm going to continue with our summary. We should finish this today. Hold on. Well, what I want to say now is y'all focus on the morality, the moral standards put forth, okay, in Christianity by the Christ figure himself. All right? And of course, the religious leaders are also involved in pushing this. All right, so let's take a look at Luke chapter 18, verse 1. Here we are, y'all. This is sermon number 8. Y'all see the theme scripture? By the way, our textbook for this course, our main textbook, is The Devil's Pulpit. The author, y'all forgive my book, I feel so bad about this. I'm embarrassed, actually. The author is The Devil's Pulpit. I'm sorry, the book title is The Devil's Pulpit, and the author is Robert Taylor, the Reverend Robert Taylor. And he, in fact, does revealed later on in this book that he was a high-ranking Freemason. How do I know? Because he says that he is in possession of one of only 3 major documents of Freemasonry. This was in 1831. All right, so now let's continue. Let's get into this. Luke chapter 18, verse 1. And he spake a parable all right, and he spake a parable unto them to this end. Now, we know that what the priestly class, or the priestcraft, that's more accurate, the priestcraft has defined a parable as and indoctrinated us with is not the meaning that Jesus, the Christ figure, gave of a parable. They are the exact opposite. So you should have picked up on something by now if you've been following me in the work that I've been doing on astrotheology. One of the techniques that they use is opposites. All right? So the meaning that's given, let's say in a parable, for those who are on the outside of the house, the goyim, the debtors, the common churchgoer, the low-level people in the church or clergy. They get one meaning, which is a apparently righteous meaning. Apparently. It is moral. It is just. According to those who set up the standard of what morality and just or righteousness is. Do you understand that? They set the standard of what is right and wrong. You had nothing to do with it, no knowledge of it. You think it's just natural because you think that. Because you are ignorant to the Hermetic laws. You don't realize that you are not who you think you are. You're out of your mind, turned upside down, flipped sideways, shooken up vertically, and tossed about. Like my mother said, you don't even much know who you is. And I'm talking to just about everybody watching this video. You think you know who you is, but you don't have a clue. Like we used to say when I was younger, you're lost in the sauce. Although you think you know who you are. You have no knowledge of the Hermetic laws. You have no knowledge of mental gender. You have no knowledge of masculine mental energy nor feminine mental energy or how they relate to each other, nor their function. You don't know anything. And I'm not putting you down, I'm telling you. Or I'm reminding you. I don't know what you know. I don't know what you forgot. And I'm talking to you. You have no knowledge, or you've forgotten that you are the great I am, the great I be, the great I exist, the Alpha and the Omega. You've forgotten, or you don't even much know, that you have no beginning and you have no end, that you are not subject to birth, nor subject or doomed to death. but that energy transforms. It is never created or destroyed. And what is energy but consciousness? What is consciousness but awareness? What is awareness but intelligence? And what is your physical body but, as they used to say in the old days, a tuning station, a receiver set at a certain frequency to receive messaging from mass consciousness. Some people call it the all, or universal mind, or divine providence, etc. See, you don't even much know who you is. And I'm telling you with compassion, because now you know. But don't take my word for it. You need to do further research. But you are the great I am. You're not subject to death. You're not subject to birth. You always have been and you always will be. So why don't you know yourself? Why don't you know yourself? Because your ancient ancestors disrespected their ancient foremothers and forefathers' principles or way of living. Denominated differently, they broke the Most High's commandments. Everybody see it? Is it clear? They corrupted the blood of the covenant. In religion, y'all call that breaking the Most High's commandments. Going against the Mosaic covenant. And so you lost all knowledge of self, tangible and intangible, taken away from you. And instead of acknowledging who you are and being who you are, Psalms 82:6, paraphrasing, all of you are God's sons, and I might add sons with the womb of the Most High. And J.C., the Christ figure, also said that. But now here you've gone from magnanimity to almost at the level, or if not at the level, of a beast. You've gone from a god to a bum. From a god to a drug addict. Y'all heard? What's the mechanism? Religion. But religion has help. It has help. It has the entire corporate system. The entire corporate system. What we see, what's closest to us, is the criminal justice system. Right? We see that. I remember my experiences with it. I was first, second grade. Right? Being harassed by the police. You know? Being harassed by the policy enforcement. Little bitty children. They would harass us. Try to intimidate us. But as I got older, I understood why. They were trying to put fear in us, to condition us to be afraid of them. Right? And they achieved success with that. And those, and their agents, So the courts, so-called courts, right? Pretending, or those corporations who, the real men and women, the real people, let me put it like that, who are operating those pretended courts, along with their agents, such as the policy enforcers, the ones, this is who we know best, children and family services, those beings who are operating those, not the corporation itself, but the criminals, the traitors who are operating them, etc. Oh, let me also talk about the people in the county level government who are in possession of land records, those in vital statistics. Y'all know Moors are also land, right? In control of those records. And who lie? All right, those who know are just outright lying. To do what? To keep you as a bondman and a bondwoman for their enjoyment and pleasure. They lie. Absolutely went in and changed records. And then present those brands as being real. But y'all know when something is not real, it's fake, right? It's fake, and it has to be some type of fake story to go along with it. Okay? Y'all see what I'm getting at? So we see in this pretend fake corporate system, we see the truth about the gospel being played out, the character of God being demonstrated to you by that being wearing a black robe, practicing dark Babylonian magic, black magic, worshiping Zoroaster, functioning as a priest of Zoroaster, a brotherhood of Saturn, secret society members, etc., etc., etc. That's why they wear the black robe, in honor of Zoroaster. Of course, Saturn is the punisher. Let me repeat that. Saturn is the punisher. So when you Christians, when you religious people who are carrying contraband, what's the contraband? That filthy religion itself. Which is in violation of natural law. You're carrying contraband in your mind, and any type of magical idols or emblems that you have on your physical body in honor of the deity that you worship, which is a violation of natural law. It's breaking the Most High's commandment. So Saturn, you go into that pretended jurisdiction, or the corporate jurisdiction, styled as a court, and Saturn punishes you, which is natural law in the background telling you, hey, I told you, stop. I've sent you signals brought to your awareness, to your attention, that you need to get out of this religion. And you didn't listen. And then the magistrate, the magician rather, let me call it that, the magician, the priest of Zoroaster, the follower of the Dark Prince, shows you, demonstrates to you the morality of Christianity for the inner house group, who Jesus willingly and lovingly shared and told the meaning of all the parables. He gave them all of the meanings and the solutions to the mysteries of the kingdom of God. Set the moral expectations of what's right and what's wrong. Okay, which are exactly opposite of what you get. You get the passivity. You get the, if someone slaps you, turn the other cheek. You get the be loving, be forgiving. That's what you got. That's your standard of morality, according to what? The superficial or surface level meaning of the parable. That's the standard, the moral standard, or the standard of right and wrong for you on the outside of the house. But now that magician in that black robe is going to show you by locking you up, disrespecting you verbally, and like in the street we say dogging you out. Not just dog you out, but then lock you up. Or take what little fiat you got. Out your pocket. And then sell whatever paperwork that was done, sell it on the bond market. And you knew nothing about that. Why? Because you're a corporation and they're robbing your estate, selling you on the bond market. You don't know nothing about it. But the little bit of fiat that you do have, they take it out of your pocket. Why? Well, to make you suffer, to make you need Jesus even more, to make you fall down on your knees, or to give you a reason rather, to fall down on your knees and pray even more. To pray without let up, to never stop praying. And in your praying without let up, to never cease to pray, you hurt yourself even more. Even more. Okay? So, when you interact with corporations, be it in a statutory, in a state of this, state of that, city of this, city of that, with these statutory, let me rephrase that. When you interact with these corporations, pretend courts, when you do a loan from a financial institution for, mortgage, whatever it is you're buying, you should remember that they're not who they say they are. And those at the top are operating by a different standard of morality. Same Bible verses. Same Bible verses. But different meaning of the doctrine. And that the whole gospel is nothing more than a parable. That they can change the standard of right and wrong at will. In other words, they change the standard of what is moral and what is ethical according to their social political agenda. Social engineering. They change it. All right, so now we're getting in the area of Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. And remember, all of this is talking about what? Jesus having the more in his hand, giving it in a transaction in commerce to the Apostle John. Secret society member, the inner house. All of this is based upon what? When you got somebody in the palm of your hand, what does that mean? That means you have control over their mind. You have control over their perceptions. How is control over perceptions acquired? Through control over language. So that would mean control over grammar rules, meaning of words, and etymology. Period. Oh, and also, of course, you know, the books, the TV sitcoms, the movies you see at the cinema, the movies that come out on DVD, the articles in magazines, the cartoons, etc. Where they can also the so-called school systems, the churches. So all of these, they push their standard of right and wrong, their morality at you, provide you a so-called education. But if they're controlling your vocabulary, they're controlling your sense of what's right and wrong. Do you see how they control how much you grow and develop? So they can limit you to a small level of growth and development at will, depending on what their needs are, how they want to use their farm animals. Will you ever know? Absolutely not. Why? Go back to the Hermetic law of mental gender and the relationship between masculine mental energy and feminine mental energy. The relationship between the great I am and me, the subconscious mind, the feminine energy, which can do nothing on its own, but operates only at the will of the Father, the great I am. And the great I am, or if you ask the question, who am I? What's the answer? Who am I? I'm my mother's son. Right? Well, who is my mother? My mother is my mother's son with a womb. And it goes all the way back. So that's what, y'all? That's nationality, that's bloodline. Families or nations and groups of nations together, the autochthonous, indigenous sons and sons with wombs are Moors. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Period. We are land according to the lawful definition of land, and it's a well-established principle of law that land, that Moors are the substance and subject matter of the law. Period. Period. All right? So that's who you are. The will. So let me go back. Without knowledge of who you are, without knowledge of your nationality, without living the principles of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, which means following the Most High's commandments. It means being harmonic with nature, not breaking the commandments. Right? If you know your nationality, you know your heritage, and you practice it, it's a way of life, then you have a very strong masculine mental energy. If you don't know it, by definition, you have a weak masculine mental energy, and we know that, right? Don't we know that, y'all? People who don't know who they are, they tend to do any and everything. You can tell them anything, they believe it, right? Easy to manipulate. So, let's go back to it. So a foreigner, or anybody else for that matter, a foreigner, let's say in this case because we're dealing with colonists, a foreigner, a Han Uman, a human being who has no right to inherit, although born from the womb of a woman, cannot inherit land. Who knows his origins, can impose their masculine mental energy on you, like the Kabbalion says. This is where I'm getting this information from, y'all. The Kabbalion by the three initiates. They can impose their masculine mental energy on you. And he uses the analogy of I forgot what kind of bird it is, but there's a bird that lays its eggs in another bird's nest. Okay? And then the birds who nest it is, legitimately, its eggs die. But the bird continues to nurture the eggs until they hatch. And that bird thinks that those are her children. It's the same thing that's happening with your mind. See, the values, the beliefs, your entire moral and ethical system, your experiences in life, everything, how you react, all of that is not you. That's the result of somebody else's masculine mental energy putting thoughts and beliefs in your mind from the time even before you became conscious. Okay, so the TV and the internet is a major mechanism of destroying you. Also magazines, major mechanism of destroying you. Major avenue or mechanism or delivery system for the masculine mental energy of your enemy to overpower your weak masculine mental energy. And therefore, because yours is weak and theirs is strong, it interacts with your feminine mental energy and causes you to create the mindset and behavior that your open enemy wants you to have. In other words, this is a mechanism of social engineering. A Negro, a Hispanic, etc., all of the Moors. Okay, that's the way they're doing it. So now let's go back to what we're talking about, the parables. So that magician in the black robe, that CEO, and other people or beings, whatever you want to call them, renegade Moors subjects, and these corporations are acting out a play. All of it treason. A tragic play that reflects the Gospels. Let me say that again. That reflects the Gospels. This is what they're supposed to do according to the Gospel. All right? According to the morality and purpose or intention of the Gospels for those who are in the inner house. Why? Because they have repented and they get saved. Saved from what? They had no land, they had no inheritance, they had no gold, they had no silver. They were what? They were vagabonds, paupers. They were poor, ignorant, and many of them still are ignorant. According to law, they cannot inherit land. Why? Because they're monsters. They're human. Han Uman, half man, half chimpanzee. So they get saved from that condition. Y'all heard? They get saved from that condition as a stateless person. And because of our behavior, not following the Most High's commandments, and our ancestors' behavior, not following the Most High's commandments, not rejecting the principles that allude to slavery. This is the contraband that I'm talking about. So you are slave to the deity, not knowing that you are the great I am. So y'all see the fraud? You see the trickery? Unbeknownst to you, all this time, you are the great I am and you have the power. The constitutional principle are the rights that are reserved to the people, but you don't even much know who you is, so you don't know that you are one of the people, the posterity, a rightful heir of that trust document. Okay, so we are unaware of the constitutional natural law principle of diversity of citizenship that our ancestors put there for us as a protection against renegade Moors and hybrids or anyone else who would seek to use that document against us. Those of us who are living those principles that I mentioned already, that we call keeping the commandments. Y'all see it? And the treaty principles, government structures, they don't get old. As long as they are in force, they're enforceable. No matter how old they are, they're enforceable. Those are obligations that must be respected. Period. Okay? But it's through the Gospels. It's through the Gospels that you are kept in a perpetual state of not knowing who you are. And the acceptance of the notion that you are supposed to suffer to be close to God. And that you need to pray all the time to get God to do something for you. See, you have been abused. That's a psychic attack. Psychological warfare. This is Christianity. So when you understand the history of Christianity, you understand that initially it was physical war, all-out war. Our ancestors didn't just accept Christianity. No, it was through war, terrorism, torture, physical and mental, theft, swindling, collusion, etc. But when they got everything, they don't need to keep fighting, right? Why would they want to keep fighting? Because one of them might get taken out. So they changed the game. Now it's psychological warfare. Now it's collusion, conspiracy and collusion, fraud, Escheat, bills of attainder, attornment through attorneys. All right? Always getting you to curse yourself. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15 through 16. That's the game right now. The mechanism is Christianity. That's my point. The parable, J.C. the Christ figure never told in the text what these parables mean. He never gave the mysteries of the kingdom of God to the common people. It was reserved for those on the inner house. And those on the inner house changed the meaning of the parable for the congregation, for those on the outside, as needed. Okay, but they themselves are loyal, faithful to the morals or the standard of right and wrong given to them by J.C. the Christ figure. And I'm not talking about a real man who ever lived or breathed or walked on the earth. I'm talking about the duplicity, the snake tongue, the fork tongue, the double meaning of these parables of the Gospels. So they are doing exactly what they are supposed to do. They're showing you what Christianity is every time you go in there and they dog you out. Evict you, take your property from you, hit you with all of these other bills of attainder, and even lock you up and throw away the key, even exterminate you or your heirs. That's what they're supposed to do, according to Christianity. What are you supposed to do? Sit there and take it. That's what you're supposed to do. And that's what they condition your mind to do as a good Christian. All right? Now, let's continue with this verse. Luke 18:1. And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought to always pray. So as we've gone through, men ought to always pray. Well, if you spend all your time praying, how are you going to earn a living? How are you going to become an expert at whatever it is you're doing when your mind is always distracted praying? See, what makes you an expert, what makes you become the best you can be at something, is mental focus. That means being undistracted. It means being totally focused on what you're doing. But if you're always distracted, praying to an external deity, how is that going to work out? See, maybe you will be an average to a low performer on the job or just in your relationship. Average or poor mother or father. Everybody see? Or even a failure. because you're distracted. Okay, because you are distracted. You're not in the moment. You're distracted. That's what praying all the time will get you on that level. On the other level, it even cause you to get fired. Right? On the other level, it's breaking the Most High's commandment because you are worshiping, honoring, revering an external deity, Zeus. Zeus, Isis, Odin. I mean, it's a ton of them. The magician, the magistrate. Y'all heard? So now you've turned nature against you. By what? By rejecting yourself. Don't bring another power before my face. You reject nature. You rejected yourself, and you've rejected the instructions of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. So now nature will begin to send you corrective measures in terms of experiences. Okay, you find yourself getting punched in the eye, punched in the nose, punched in the mouth, hit with various situations. I'm speaking metaphorically, y'all. You start to experience hardships, which are signals for you to stop. Stop doing that, but you ignore it. Why? Because you've been conditioned that even when things get worse and worse and worse and worse, you pray more, you pray more, you pray more. Until all of a sudden, until that time rather, when you have nothing. You have nothing. Your fiat is gone. Your fiat is gone. You're emotionally strained. Your relationship is strained. Your heirs, you become ashamed of your heirs' behavior, your kinfolk against you, nothing but chaos and conflict in your life. But you've been told that when you worship the deity, your family will turn against you. That's what you've been told. Okay, so that message, when you look at that, you say, oh, well, I expect that. This means that I have God's favor. Right? But what I'm trying to get you to see is that the law, the Hermetic law of cause and effect, will send you signals, will send you information that you need to take corrective actions. But that messaging system has been distorted because you've been given a set of beliefs that cause you to discount or ignore the law of cause and effect. You've been taught to associate it with religion, with being signs that the Most High is with you. Y'all see how crafty these priestcraft characters are? These criminals? See that? They're using nature against you. But they need to get you to consent, to volunteer, to participate on your own so that nature can go against you. Y'all see it? This is the curses, Deuteronomy 25, 28, 15 through 68. And where was I? Oh, praying. So that's what's happening. You're breaking the first commandment, praying to these external deities. Okay? That's at the second level. That's the first level. Second level is that you are disempowering yourself because you're not focused. Okay, you're not in the now. What else happens when you pray? Well, as I mentioned as I mentioned earlier, where you get more communication from the law of cause and effect, you get more punishments, which results in you praying that much more. But as they say in Asia, if you get lucky, you'll finally wake up, you'll listen to cause and effect, and you'll say, you know what, I ain't praying no more. I'm finished with praying. I'm finished with this deity. This deity is not serving me, I'm serving it, and I'm getting nothing in return. Y'all got it? So you wake up, and you decide to abandon the religion. Now I'm going through what we went over in the chapter. So let's go back to the parable. To Luke chapter 18, verse 1. And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought to always pray. They're setting you up for failure. They're setting you up for nature to punish you and not to faint, saying, quote, there was in a city a judge, which feared not God, neither regarded men. Keep these two things in mind. Didn't fear God and had no respect for man, had no respect for Moors. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him saying, quote unquote, avenge me of mine adversary, give me revenge. And he, that's the judge, would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, listen to this, y'all, though I fear not God, nor regard man, nor respect Moors. In other words, he doesn't respect the law. Remember, y'all, the substance and subject matter of the law is land or Moors. So he's saying, I don't respect the substance of the law. I don't respect the subject matter of the law. He's saying that he doesn't fear God. Why? Because he knows that God doesn't exist. He knows that God is Zeus. God is Odin. God is the magistrate, the magi, etc. He knows this. He's supposed to be a judge, so therefore he knows this. He's on the inner house. He's a judge. He's in political position. He is in the inner house. He's a secret society member. That's why he doesn't fear God. Okay, he or this judge was given the mysteries of the kingdom of God. So that's why he has no fear. Y'all see it? But you, on the outside, you have fear of Zeus. You have fear of God. Y'all need to do the work on God so you understand what I'm talking about if you don't understand. Okay? And God is a transitive verb. That's why he doesn't fear God. But he has no respect for the substance of the law, which is a Moor. And he has no respect for the subject matter of the law, which is a Moor, which is what? The Moor's estate. No respect for it. None whatsoever. Quote unquote, though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this woman troubleth me, I will avenge her. I will give her the revenge that she desires, lest her continual coming she weary me. So the judge is only concerned about his comfort, his lifestyle. He's not concerned with due process of law. The natural law principle, the constitutional principle, has no regard
for Moors. He has no regard for the substance and subject matter of the law. He don't care anything about due process of law. What the hell are you talking about? Y'all see it? Everybody see it? We're dealing with a plague, a tragedy. A tragedy for who? A tragedy for us who are on the outside of the house. A blessing for those who are on the inside of the house. A savior for those who are on the inside of the house. Y'all got it? So that's all the judge is concerned about, himself, his comfort. Meaning, that means what? That means this judge, this secret society member, is willing to rob you, to rob the Moors, to exterminate Moors, without ever thinking about justice, without ever thinking about, without giving any consideration or regard to the fact that the Moors are the substance and subject matter of the law. Now, why is that? Because without you being in the curses, without you being Civiliter Mortuus, without you being civilly dead, without you being in maritime admiralty, Catholic canon, Christian jurisdiction, they have nothing. They have nothing. Even their fiat system breaks down. See, this is why those hybrids and renegade Moors, this has everything to do with the loss of nationality or the taking away of our nationality, and then removing silver and gold substance from the Constitution. Why? So that they could usher in the democracy and the fiat system, which cannot be if there's substance remaining in the Constitution. So hence you have the organic Constitution, and then you have the democracy. Okay, in the democracy, corporations and trust can hold property. In the organic Constitution, they cannot. Okay, so the U.S. Constitution is for the dead, the corporate state, fiat system, trickery. The civilly dead are there. Okay, you got shipped into that jurisdiction on the good ship Jesus, which is contraband. Just like a driver's license is contraband, your religion, Christianity, or whichever religion it is, got you worshiping an external deity, is contraband. And it identifies you as a Moorish subject. According to natural law, according to the Most High's commandments. I think that's very clear. See, when you're in religion, you're worshiping an external deity. Everyone should already know by now that this deity is Oannes, the half man, half fish. It is a hybrid jurisdiction. Oannes, Dogon. The Pope wears a mitre or mitre, however you want to pronounce it. It is worshipful honor of Dogon, Oannes, the half man, half fish, a hybrid. The Raphaim, which is an ongoing generation of the Nephilim in its metamorphosized state. After physical death on the terrestrial land,
metamorphosized into essentially what is a mermaid, right? Half man, half fish. He has a tail, but yet he has feet and legs. I did a community post on this topic, but y'all research it yourself, okay? I hope everyone is seeing what's happening here. So you're already carrying contraband according to the treaty of peace and friendship between the Empire of Morocco and the United States of North America. You're already carrying contraband. According to nature. You're already disrespecting your foremothers and forefathers. You're breaking the Most High's commandments. Does everyone see this? This should be clear as day by now. So now let's continue. I'm still doing the review. I'm still doing the review. So y'all have to correlate this with the parable of the unjust steward. All right? Correlate the unjust judge parable with the unjust steward. I'm on page 114. In the two parables together, we have an harmonious inhibition of what? On gospel principles. That's the key. Gospel principles. The character of God. What is the character of God? This is what? The morality. The standards of what is right and what is wrong. We get that through these parables. But not only through these parables, remember the whole gospel is a parable. The whole of the gospel is a parable. So we're focusing on the standards of what's right and wrong as set according to the Gospels, according to Jesus Christ. In the two together we have an harmonious exhibition of what? On gospel principles. The character of God, the character of Zeus is supposed to be, which is that of an unjust judge. I hope y'all can accept that. And what the character of a Christian is supposed to be, which is that of an unjust steward. A pretty brace of game to be dished up to the relish of our moral appetite. Y'all see it? Now do you understand why Christian behavior is so negative? Why? Because you've been conditioned to be unprincipled. You've been conditioned to break the Most High's commandments. Yes. We see the character of the deity as unprincipled, against nature, and the character of the Christian, the religious person, especially the religious fanatic. It's unprincipled. Wouldn't this explain the pedophilia? Wouldn't this explain all of the hookups that go on in church? All of the stealing, fake funds and campaigns to raise fiat, and nothing ever happens? The competing of the religions, the wars between the Christians, the disrespect of the Hebrew Israelites for other Hebrew Israelites in different camps and different denominations of Christianity, as y'all see them disrespecting each other, and other Christian organizations on the street. We see it, right? Very unprincipled. But the excuse is going to be, of course, Christ was an austere man. But let's make it known we're focusing in on the morality as set up by the gospel, by Christ himself, on what the standard of right and wrong is. The unjust steward robbed his master. So the Christian robs his boss. The Christian steals and connives and cheats those he has an obligation to. He defrauds them. And the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done so wisely. Y'all see that? And the unjust judge gave sentence without hearing any cause. Not only did he not hear cause, but the accused never got notice, never had an opportunity to be heard, never had a chance to enforce. Completely denied due process of law. No respect for the substance and subject matter of the law. The natural law principle of due process. But what else do you expect from a hybrid? These are the values of Christianity. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Hold on. So you walk into one of these corporate One second, y'all. Let me let this announcement go off. So it looks like the kids are out, but not the kids, but the students are out for lunch. Okay, y'all, let's continue. So in this case, the Moorish subject, or even the sovereign Moor, for whatever reason, is in that corporate room, facility, building, whatever that they call a court. There's not an Article 3 court. And the magician wearing a black robe, knowing that they're looking at a sovereign Moor, living according to the principles of his ancient foremothers and forefathers, following the Most High's commandments, a competent heir. Yet and still, the Magi, the clerk of courts, the prosecutor, everybody in there playing a role in that play, in that gospel parable, pretends that that sovereign Moor is a Moorish subject. And conspires together, everyone in that play, conspires to denationalize the Moor and to rob the Moor of his or her inheritance. That's what this is about. That's the magician's morality, standard of morality. Rob the Moor, steal the Moor's birthright. Period. Okay? Conspire together to steal the birthright. Threaten the Moor, psychically or physically. That happened to me when I was in one of the venues. Locked me up overnight to try to intimidate me. but I wasn't intimidated, threatened me, etc., etc. But these are common tactics, not just me. Okay? But it's a parable, and they're playing a role. Okay? And you are the target. You're the target. Why? Because we are in the curses. But it's time to come up out of the curses now, y'all. It's time to abandon these religions. It's time to, when I say abandon religion, I'm talking about the doctrines, your fears, and your hopes associated with that doctrine. Abandon them. Return to the Most High. Follow the Most High's instructions. The essence of the Most High's commandments is simply to do no harm. Don't harm anyone. That's the essence of it. That's the essence of the so-called Ten Commandments. When you worship an external deity, you're harming yourself. In addition to your heirs and your kinfolk. Why? You get the punishment of the corruption, or of corrupting rather, the blood of the covenant. You corrupt the blood of the covenant. In other words, you're given everything for free. You didn't work for anything. It's all given to you for free. We enter into the earth plane in the covenant of grace. Mother Earth, y'all hear me? Mother Earth, you should be thinking what? Feminine mental energy. Mother Earth gives forth her bounty in terms of vegetation, food, fruit, all of it, right? Nuts, all of the plants, the vegetables, the fruits, gives it forth. All of the wood, the gold, the silver, the copper, the jewels, the rubies, the onyx, the emerald, whatever we need, the water, the gas, the oil, everything, y'all, gives it up for free. You did nothing for it. You got to remember that you are thought made manifest from the soil, that you're the great I am. And then you come on the earth plane and you worship an external deity, and then you serve that deity. You give that deity, external deity, all of your energy and efforts, all of your respect, even rejecting the principles and the commandments of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, which really come from you. So you reject yourself. Does everyone see why this makes sense now? Okay, you corrupt the blood of the covenant, therefore you get stripped, you get denationalized. And through your denationalization, you lose everything, including knowledge of self, knowledge on how to live, knowledge on how to eat. You become totally dependent and civilly dead, which is exactly where the Raphaim, Oannes, Dogon, and the religious institutions, let me rephrase that, the religious leaders want you to be. This is Genesis chapter 1. Let's continue. I spent too much time on that. Let's continue. Listen to this. So this is for the inside, those who are on the inside of the house. For those who are in the higher rankings of life, that's the secret societies on the inside, secret society members who are on the inside of the house, those higher ups, who are our aristocrats, lords. What is that? Lords, landlords. Those people who are claiming to be landlords or the sovereigns of the land, but who in fact are not. How are they doing it? Through corporations, right? Remember, the substance was taken out of the Constitution. Now you have the democracy. Okay? So our aristocrats, lords, and hereditary masters, the most godlike example proposed to their observance is to teach them to be indifferent to the petitions of the people. Y'all got that? To teach them to have no regard for the people, for the Moors. No regard, to teach them to have no regard for law. Have no regard for the posterity. No regard for due process of law. No regard for treaty law when it comes to us. Okay? In fact, to conspire against us is what they do. Okay? When I say conspire against us, what I'm talking about is conspire against us to steal our birthright, to keep us in a psychological condition where we don't even much know who we is. All right? Where we are victims due to their criminal motive, their criminal intent to defraud us, to rob us of our birthright. That's their motive. Okay? To act from no consideration but of their own convenience. And if ever they do attend to a petition, never to think of the right or the reason of it. See, it has nothing to do with law for them, but only to get rid of the bother. They just want to get rid of the situation so that they can sit down and relax, smoke a cigar and drink some whiskey. Now this is for those who are on the outside of the house, the common people, the common churchgoer. For those who are in inferior and dependent situations, the proposed example is that they should rob their employers. That they should rob their employers, that they should rob their congregations. So the preachers and the pastors, the captains, the generals of the Hebrew Israelites and Christian churches, Muslim church, mosques, that they should rob their members and cheat and swindle. The religion I was in, they cheated and swindled members out of their homes, you know, when they expire, life insurance when they expire, other properties, so on and so forth. How did they do it? That fake, false story. You know, the hope that they have. Going to God's kingdom, supporting God's kingdom. And these people gave their homes to the religious organization instead of to their heirs. Gave their life insurance policies to the religious organization instead of to their heirs. See? Theft, birthright theft. All right, so they cheat and swindle so dexterously, they're so expert at it, that if they should ultimately be found out, their employers themselves, their members, should own that they did it cleverly. All right? Now let's continue. And this gospel morality, the standards of right and wrong, the standards of expected behavior, of right and wrong is set by the gospel. All right? And it influences Western society. I even see it influencing Asian society here in Southeast Asia. I see its influence here, y'all. Okay, I see its influence here. Okay, this is the Judeo-Christian legal system. This is Western business ethics, legal ethics, medical ethics, all of it based upon the Judeo-Christian legal system. It's all about what? Denationalizing, punishing, and extracting. Let me repeat that. Conspiring against and extracting the birthright from the Moors. That's what it's about. Having no sympathies with the people and no motive of action but their own convenience, talking about the inner house. So they are a set of cunning rogues. I'm on page 115. All right? And liars and cheats. Okay? And those on the outside are just slaves, bondmen and bondwomen. Okay? Now y'all should remember that the definition that the clergy gives of a parable is as follows. Give me 1 second, let me find the definition. I hope y'all still here. I lost the connection, or at least it said I did. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Where is it? Okay, I think it's here. Okay, so here's the definition of a parable. Page 119. And what is a parable? But a something represented to the imagination. All right? So remember I used to always talk about narrative transportation in the astrotheology course. The Gospel and the Zodiac, the secret truth about JC the Christ figure. Remember I used to always talk about narrative transportation, right? These tragic plays, these tragedies, the Gospel's intent is to get you to imagine, activate your imagination, transport you into the narrative. Because once you transport yourself in the narrative, you're no longer in this reality. You're no longer present, but you're in the story. And if you do that enough, you begin to adopt the values of the story. You begin to live as though these stories are real. They will guide your life. That's a fact. Not just with the Bible, not just with the Gospels, rather, but any book, any story. But a tragedy is most effective because it gets you emotionally involved. So when you get into a peak emotional state, your subconscious mind is more likely, or is more vulnerable, rather, to a thought or belief, and then it becomes a part of you. Okay, and then your subconscious mind, which is the feminine mental energy, will make it come true in your life. All right, y'all? Let's continue. And what is a parable? But something represented to the imagination which has no reality. Y'all got that? In other words, when you go into these corporate venues, that's all imaginary stuff. Corporations are all dead. They're foreign or foreigners to us. Foreigners to us. State of this, state of that. That's not alive. It can't bring a complaint. Have you ever heard it speak? Or does it always have a representative speaking on its behalf? Okay? It's all imagination. It's a non-reality. So parables are a non-reality. It's just something we imagine, exists only in our imagination. This is the Greek paradigm, the Greek paradigm, the abstract paradigm. Y'all can get more on concrete and abstract in the one-on-one Ancient Ibaryath class. The link is in the description area of this video. Parables are a throw by the side, or apart from the line of truth. Y'all got that? Truth are those concrete things. Truth is nature. Truth has its origin from the sun, the S-U-N, sun, right? Because it's always reliable, like clockwork. You can trace and track what it's going to do. It's never late. It's always on time. This is where the abstract concept of truth has its origin, in the sun. Okay, in the S-U-N, sun. That's astrology or astronomy. All right? Remixed, of course, into truth. Okay? So parables are ways to activate the imagination so you can lie and trick people to avoid truth, to avoid natural law, okay, without someone knowing it. Let's continue. So parables, it is a throw by the side or apart from the line of truth into the regions of fancy and fiction. Legal fictions, right? Legal fictions, the ens legis, the nom de guerre. There are 44 parables in the course of 4 Gospels. 4, that's 44, 4, 8, and 12. There are 44 parables in the course of 4 Gospels. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 4 is 12, plus JC, the Christ figure, is 13. 13 is perfect rulership. 12 constellations, 1 SUN sun. The constellations and the sun tells the story of the future, the present, and the past. Perfect rulership, God's kingdom. Y'all got it? Y'all think that's just a coincidence? Huh? Y'all think that? So 44 parables, that's a lot of parables. So as you can see, this is the basis for the author's statement that the entire gospel is a parable. All right? A fiction, a non-reality. Just made up stories. I already read that, hold on. Now, what is the nature of a work that contains admitted parables? What is the nature of a book that admittedly contains, right? You can open them up, count them, 44 parables. What are parables? Parables represent something to the imagination which has no reality. They're just stories. What's the nature of a book like that? Let me let the noise go by. So now, what is the nature of a work that contains admitted parables, but evidently what is the nature of a work? I really need a studio. Now what is... Hold on, y'all. Now, what is the nature of a work that contains admitted parables, but evidently a work of fiction and imagination? A work in which one thing is said and another thing is meant. Can everybody see that? This is kind of unbelievable. All right, y'all, let's continue. So the author makes the statement here that this gospel contains 44 parables. So the evidence that it is a work of fiction and imagination is clear. It says one thing, but another thing is meant. There's one doctrine for those on the outside of the house and another doctrine for those who are on the inside of the house. This is the double tongue of the Gospels. Everybody see it? That's the double tongue, the duality, the double tongue of the Gospels. Everybody see it? All right, let's continue. But parables, our parsons or religious leaders, our clergy tell us, are easy and familiar modes of instruction. Notice the bright, positive light that they're putting these parables in. Now, we already just looked at this about parables are nothing but imagination. They're non-reality. They hide the truth. But now let's look at what the clergy says parables are. Parables our clergy tell us, our magicians tell us, are easy and familiar modes of instruction, things that you know about. Graciously adopted. See, graciously means it's something good for you. Graciously adopted by our blessed Savior in order to convey his divine lessons more clearly to the mind. In other words, these parables are instructions that are supposed to be things that you know about. And because you know about them, you can therefore relate and understand better what JC the Christ figure is telling you in the parable. Otherwise, if he didn't use a parable, it would just be too complicated. So he's giving you a blessing by simplifying it for you. Okay? Now, this is what the clergy says. Now, remember, we're talking about Parables that are things of the imagination that are not reality. Reality can only be experienced by the senses. Things of the imagination, that's called abstract. And if you confuse what you imagine with reality, well, then you're crazy. If your eyes are seeing something that is not there, you're also crazy. If your ears are hearing something that is also not there, you are also crazy. So we have sanity, and then we have the condition of being out of our mind. Crazy. Okay? Distorted reality. That's what we're dealing with here. Now listen, y'all. Listen. But are the clergy telling us the truth with this definition that they gave us? Let's read. I'm on page 119, the second from the last paragraph. Are they so? Is this a real definition? Is this the definition that Christ gave? Or does it reflect the meaning that Christ gave? And did he therefore speak? Did Jesus therefore speak in parables in order to assist our comprehension? As the clergy said, remember the clergy says that the parables tell us, the parables are to give us an easy and familiar mode of instruction to convey the divine lessons. Is that true? Well, let's continue. Let's let Jesus speak for himself. We read, quote, therefore, speak I to them in parables. Then we see the semicolon, the explanation coming. That seeing they may see and not perceive. So the parable is intended to detach what you see with your eyes from what you perceive with your mind. The parable is supposed to make you crazy. For example, there's a horse. Your eyes see a horse, but your brain processes, your visual center perceives a cow or a fish. See, you're crazy. The parable, according to Christ, is intended to make you crazy. How? By uncoupling what your eyes see from what your visual center interprets. It's uncoupled. Christianity, according to the Christ, these 44 parables that Christ spoke are intended to make you crazy. And hearing, we hear with our ears, and hearing, they may hear, but not understand. So the parable is intended to uncouple what we hear, the vibrations of sound, that we hear, the voice that we hear, and our brain center for interpreting language. The parable is meant to uncouple the language that we hear, the vibratory sounds that we hear, from our language center in our brain, so that we hear but don't understand the words. We don't understand the language. Y'all got it? So it's supposed to make you crazy. It's supposed to make you unable to function in nature. The parable is supposed to make you unable to function in nature. I didn't make it up. Y'all go check the verse. I'm not talking about any doctrine. I'm talking about what the verse says. Parables are supposed to make you crazy. Make it so that you don't see, you don't perceive what you see. In other words, so when your clergy is tricking you, when the magi is tricking you, when they're stealing your estate, you don't see it. When they're speaking legalese, you don't understand the meaning. When you're speaking connotative linguistics. Everybody see it? When you read something, you're using your eyes. Your eyes see it, but you don't perceive that you're being robbed. You don't see that these are not contracts that you're dealing with. You don't perceive that the property was already yours and you gave it away. Although it's written right there. I believe I don't remember right now the word. It's in French, if I remember correctly. But you gave it away as a gift. You don't perceive that the bill, the fiat Federal Reserve note, you don't perceive that it's not money and that it's a debt instrument. You don't perceive it. You don't understand it. You sat there in finance class for a whole year or 2 years, listen to the professor speaking, and you never perceived that we're not dealing with money but fiat. You never perceived it. You never understood it, rather. Y'all hear me? You've heard this so-called name of yours. You even read it on the envelope or on a so-called bill in all capital letters. But you never perceive that that's not you, but that is a corporation. Okay? You never perceived and you never understood, although you saw it and heard it a million times, that you're not a U.S. citizen. See, you have been disabled, intellectually dismantled through the Gospels. You've been conditioned from the time you started hearing the gospel, going to church, etc., to accept being civilly dead. You have accepted the domination, the supremacy over you, the jurisdiction of the Dogon and Oannes. You've accepted suffering and living in a fake world. And you've come to enjoy it, and you don't want to give it up. Most of y'all, you like living in Oz. Now let's continue. I think this might be the last point of review, and then I'll go on to the lesson. To emphasize, I'm on page 120. For had the gist on it been, the gist on the moral of the story about these parables, to hold up the character of the unjust judge to our hatred. In other words, if the clergy would have presented to us the unjust judge as behavior that we should hate, as being unrighteous, cruel, and against natural law, well, that would have been okay. Or had the gist on it been to hold up the character of the unjust judge to our hatred rather than to our respect. As the exposition, or it continues, as the exhibition of the character of a devil. See, the devil is a schemer, is a thief, right? The devil is a thief and a liar. Well, so is the unrighteous judge. He robbed you of your due process of law. He may have even robbed this being, this Moor, who he convicted of his or her life. But definitely they're robbing us as a people of our estate, our nobility, etc., right? Provided we are living the Most High's commandments. Provided we're keeping the Most High's commandments. Provided we don't carry contraband on our vessel. And this is your vessel, this earthen vessel. Do you have contraband? Are you still afraid of burning in Christian hell? You still think you're going to die and go to heaven, according to the Christian belief? Do you still believe there's an external deity determining, looking at everything you do, making this go right and this go wrong for you? See, if you do, you're carrying contraband. You still feel like you need to tithe the church? You need to go to church? You need to pray to the deity? You need any residual beliefs, fears, hopes, dreams related to Christianity that you still harbor? Well, those are what? All of that dilute to slavery. You're carrying contraband. You are in your lower self. Although you might be trying to transmute to higher self behavior and mindset. But until you release it all, you're finished with it, you got contraband on your vessel. And you will be dealt with if you get caught with it. That's according to the treaty that I mentioned earlier, Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1836, between the Empire of Morocco and the United States of North America. Period. So we have to abandon all religion. How do you do that? How do you overcome the fear? Well, you can look at the Hermetic laws, right? The Hermetic law of polarity, the law governing opposites. Okay, you overcome a fear by doing the opposite of the fear, but you first need to be able to identify opposites. Opposite emotional states. Okay? So that takes effort, work to learn these things. All right? But you can do it. So, we got to ask ourselves, why is it that the clergy, that the religious leader continuously puts the unjust judge's behavior before us as being righteous, when it's actually devilish? Okay? It is actually devilish. So, what's the moral standard set by Christianity, by the Christ of the gospel? What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that the standard of right and wrong is to defraud the Moors out of their nationality, to conspire against the Moors to rob them of their nationality, to scheme and swindle them, to deny them due process of law. Due process of law is the beginning of law. Right? Notice, right to be heard, and then you enforce. Deny. Okay? Deny them of their nationality. Even when it's obvious that they've repented. They've changed their niggerish, Latino, Indian, whatever it is you are. They changed their ways. They repented. You don't want to be a nigga no more. I don't want to be a nigga no more. Right? You gave it up. You stopped all, like my uncle used to say, you stopped all the niggerism. Right? The nigga S-H-I-T. Whichever byword they call you. All right? You gave that up. The stereotypical behaviors. You gave it up. And now, you're living out those 5 principles. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Which is not harming anyone. That's natural law. That's the Most High's commandments. So you return to that. You've repented. Now, you're saved. But that unrighteous judge, seeing it and knowing it that you are a competent heir, knowing that you are a people, posterity, that you're the rightful heir and you're competent, ignore diversity of citizenship and ignore the treaty that I just mentioned earlier. See, when the competent heir appears, you take back your estate. Right? But they ignore it. Because that's Christianity. That's what they are supposed to do. Okay, that's why our ancestors called them devils. All right? So when we see this happening, I'm on page 120. The author writes, this is the last paragraph. And had the moral been on it, that's the moral of the story of the unrighteous judge, had the moral been just exactly that men who fall under the government, say a democracy or feudalism, a monarchy, operating on feudal law, or a feudal system, rather, a democracy, that men who fall under the government of such unrighteous governors as heed not the justice and reasonableness of the petitions of the people. They're not following common law or natural law. They don't give a damn about you, as we see from the text, but act only from caprice and tyranny. See, these beings are committing treason. When you are in that state, or when you're in that venue, and these are the things that are happening around you, here's what the author says. That a person who's not brainwashed, a person who's sane in their right mind, ought not to pray always, but to pray no more. But take the power into their own hands. What power? The powers that are reserved to the people. The executive power, the judicial power, and the legislative power. Take that power into your own hands. And then you decide the case. You enter the judgment, the default judgment. Everybody see? The powers that are reserved to the people in North America, a Republican state of mind, government, is guaranteed, is what our ancestors put in place. But they removed the substance and brought in a democracy. Y'all see that? So although they had agreed to live according to those principles, they violated it. And so therefore, they don't have any jurisdiction over commerce. Right? And then there's stare decisis law too, right? About corporations can only interact with corporations and the contracts between them. And the corporation can't become equal or be equal to a man or woman, to a sovereign more. Cannot be. Right? Cannot be. So we take the powers that are reserved to the people, we take them and we wield that power. When they fail to produce their congressional delegation of authority as required by the Constitution, well, we hold them in default and enter a judgment against them. Let's continue. Now the author continues to say that these righteous men and women should play the Paris game upon their ruthless oppressors and hurl them from their fortified authority, and we know what he means by that, la guillotine, off with the head. Would not that have been as good a moral for the story of the unrighteous judge, right? But that's not what the clergy taught us. That's not what they taught us. But isn't declaring your nationality, living the principles, taking back the powers that are reserved to the people, knowing who you are and being who you are, a sovereign, living your life according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, which are the most highest commandments. You don't harm anybody. In fact, you're always adding to. In fact, you're always adding to. And if you take, you add back more than you took. That's a principle of nature. Isn't that as honorable to the moralists? Now, who are the moralists? The moralists are the secret society members. The academics who are in the secret societies, the bankers, those who lead the medical and health industry, the Templars, those who are leading the judicial system, the political system, the legislatures, all of them. These are the ones who are involved in determining what's right and wrong, setting the moral standard. All right? And instructive to ourselves. No, but why did they do that? Why did they teach us or present to us and teach us the devilish aspect of the parables? Well, because they want to rob you of your birthright. That's why. All right? Now let's continue. I had no idea I would go on for so long on a summary. So I hope that it's clear that you should not, in fact, continue praying without let up, because you're only hurting yourself. Hold on. All right, so here we are. Man, I might have, you know what, y'all, we've been going for two. I'm going to come back maybe within 12 to 24 hours and pick this up. I don't want to take this into 3 hours, y'all. We're at 2 hours and 15 minutes. Unless, of course, if y'all want me to continue, I will. If you want me to continue, we got 3 pages. Hold on. We have one, 2, 2.5 pages. Y'all want me to go through it? I'll go through it. I'll go through it really quickly. All right, I'm going to go through it really quickly. So page 126. Second paragraph. But when I see contrivance, trick, and management, when I see people scheming, in other words, when I see the deity and the clergy member scamming, let me rephrase that. When I see them plotting a scheme, creating a mechanism or a device to defraud someone, when I see them tricking people, in the scripture you'll see that as treachery, and when I see management, see they put measurement, means of measurement, and other type of management. What's the vocabulary that I want to use? When this is, let me just keep it simple. When this is controlled, they manage it, they measure it, they create outcomes, create plans, management. When they manage plots and schemes and they create devices, mechanisms to rob people, as this relates to the Moors, to rob us of our birthright, the contrivance, what else would this be, y'all? It would be these fake courts, the democracy itself, the bills of attainder. See, these are all devices to defraud. These are all conspiracies to defraud Moors out of their estate, out of their birthright. All of this has its origin in the Gospels. Hence, Jesus showing the Moor in the palm of his hand, having complete control of his mind. He's got the Moor in the palm of his hand, and he is delivering the Moor to the Apostle Paul, the secret society member. But the Moors are not aware of this. They're not aware that Christianity is a device, a contraband. It is a device to make the Moor crazy. Remember about the eyes and the ears? Remember, y'all? He's seeing things that are not there. He's using language that says one thing that means another, but he doesn't understand what it means. Also legalese. Also contracts that are not contracts. Bills of attainder. And he has no idea what's happening. He has no idea that he's being escheated, hypothecated, a turn, none whatsoever. This is what the author is talking about. But when I see contrabands, trick and management, plots, devices, schemes, scandals and scams, democracy between God and man. Y'all got that? When I see the man who puts himself under the protection of omnipotence, under the protection of God, under the protection of Zeus, putting God, omnipotence, Zeus, under his or man's protection in turn. So the religious leaders are going to protect the institution of religion. They're going to protect the deity. How? They're going to make it a crime for you to expose what they do. A crime on the books or a crime that's not on the books. They'll try to exterminate you or lock you up. make you look like a devil worshiper, a demon, etc. This is what he's talking about. And that the bargain between them is God, Zeus, and the clergy. We throw in there the Christian too, because they're also involved in it, right? The unrighteous steward is the Christian, the common Christian, taught to rob his employer. Here's the bargain between them. If you'll serve me, I'll serve you. You get me out of my scrapes, you get me out of my troubles, and I'll get you out of yours. What can I think but that a man is more a knave than a fool? What can I think than that these clergy members, that these Christians are more unprincipled than they are a fool? Okay? More rascals than they are stupid idiots. And that if God were anything more than a figment of the man's conceit, a figment of his imagination, they are but two unprincipled people laying their heads together, conspiring against the Moors, to chouse and cheat mankind, to chouse, to swindle, Escheat, a turn. Now when you see mankind, you should be thinking Han Uman, Genesis chapter 1, because that's a kind of man, a symbolicum, a colorable man, as in colorable law. Looks like law, looks like a man, but it doesn't have the substance. Remember, a Moor is the substance and subject matter of the law, whereas a hybrid, although born from the womb of a woman, cannot inherit land. A hybrid is not a rightful heir. Everybody see it? So this is a Han Uman, a human, a monster, a landless, stateless, vagabond, and pauper, according to how our ancient ancestors described them. And isn't not such a provision to get omnipotence, to get Odin, Zeus, God, out of the scrape? Listen, y'all. You may have thought, how can a man get God out of a scrape? How can a man get God out of a problem? Well, here the author is telling you how. Listen. Listen. This is, actually, I think this is very important. Listen to this. And isn't it, and is, and isn't not, let me just speak regular English. And it is not such a provision, it is not such a big thing to do to get omnipotence or to get God out of the scrape. It's not a big thing to do to make people unable to see that this God, that this Zeus that they are worshiping isn't real, has no power. That's what he said. And to prevent his impotence, to prevent his lack of power and his weakness from being found out. Y'all see that? So man or mankind, the secret society member, saves God by preventing the Moors from ever finding out that this God, Zeus, Isus, Jesus that they worship is powerless. Powerless. And the petitioner petitions for nothing. Y'all got that? Well, this is what the author is saying. They teach you that the highest form of devotion, the highest level of faith in Christ is to pray and expect nothing, to ask for nothing in return. And I was a big fool because I was there. But with that swindling, shirking, saving clause, in submission to the divine will, and so asks for nothing in his prayer, and that it will cost omnipotence, that it will cost God, Zeus, any trouble to grant. But that the highest level of Christianity, the highest level of spirituality in its prayers, or in his or her prayers, should request and expect spiritual joys, grace in the soul, and everlasting crowns in heaven. Why? As the author continues, these are so much cheaper than bread and cheese and potatoes. See, God doesn't have to perform. He doesn't have to give you anything, because they've tricked you into expecting nothing and asking for nothing from God. And all those times that God gave you nothing in terms of answering your prayers, you grow to realize that you shouldn't serve God for what God could give to you, but out of love. And that you were wrong, because you should only expect spiritual joys, grace in the soul, and everlasting crowns in heaven as a reward or as an answer to your prayer. And that you need to suffer, pick up your torture stake, pick up your cross, and be a footstep follower of Christ and suffer just like he suffered. Nowhere to lay his head. Homeless. Okay? So you get God, or the secret society members get God off the hook. All right? Because now the petitioner in prayer didn't get anything, because you're not supposed to get anything. And if you're expecting to get a prayer answered through material things, well, you're not spiritually well developed. You're a spiritual babe. So they saved God. They saved God in that way. Right? What if you are of the mindset when you pray, God needs to answer your prayer and give you something tangible that you can work with, hold in your hands. You can hear it, you can smell it, you can taste it. All right? Decent car, good car, decent house, pay the tuition, whatever. Tangible things that the deity gave you that you can say, look, 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 look. All right? But if you're in that mindset, the same mindset that a lot of you women have of your consort or your boyfriend who's not providing for him, what you going to do? You're going to leave him. Most of y'all will leave. But a lot of the men raised by these women now have that attitude. They expect the woman to bring something to the table. And if she doesn't bring tangible physical things, fiat, etc., then he don't want it. Well, how about hold that same energy to the deity? Okay? So man saves God in that way. All right? And therefore, since they save God in your mind by managing your expectations of God, get you to accept nothing in return for this always praying without let up. And then God saves them. How? Because they remain in the congregation, and every month they extract that drachma coin out of your mouth. They have access to your son for sex. to your daughter for sex, to your consort, your wife for sex. They get you to contribute your fiat to other projects. They get you to teach and preach for free. They get you to honor them, raise them up, make them feel good about themselves, all while they exploit you. That's what's happening there. All right? Now let's continue. All right? By not asking for anything which, being of a nature to admit of proof, whether it had been granted or not, might prove that he stood not quite so high in the court favor as he pretended. Oh, y'all see that? So the preacher is on the hook. You go to his congregation, you think he's righteous, he's tight with God, close to God, right? Got him on speed dial, can text God, FaceTime with God, but yet your prayers are unanswered. But yet the preacher is supposed to be praying on your behalf, representing you before God. But yet your prayers are not answered. So what does that say about the preacher? Is he really close to God? Obviously not, right? If you ain't getting what you've been praying for. So everybody gets off the hook but you. Why? Because you don't understand that the Gospels are a parable. It's imaginary stuff meant to distort the truth, meant to detach you from reality so that you can believe or fall for anything. You're at these clergy members' mercy. You're really worshiping the scribes who translate your Bible. They control the words that are written there. And the Bible commentators, the commentaries that you read. That's who you're serving, unbeknownst to you, idiot. All right. So you let the God off. You let Zeus off. He doesn't have to provide any proof of his power. You granted him full faith and credit because of the way you feel and because of what you want and because of your fears. You granted that deity full faith and credit, and you get punished in return. You granted that preacher, that teacher, that clergy, imam, pastor, general, captain, reverend. You gave them full faith and credit. You relied on them. And you are relying on them. You consider them to be credible without any basis at all. In fact, right? Of course, the basis is the gospel. But unbeknownst to you, it's a parable. It's meant to make you crazy. All right, now let's continue. So stop giving them your full faith and credit. Whether it had been granted or not, that's the answer to your prayer, was answered or not, might prove that he stood, this is the religious leader, the clergy, not quite so high in court favor as he pretended. So he had a motive to defraud you, because he would have been exposed if Zeus doesn't answer your prayer. Y'all see the conspiracy? And that this divine crony, his God, his Zeus, that he has to fly to when he is in trouble, thinks, if he thinks at all, that he's an impudent thief for his pains. The poet Juvenal and Horace, the moralist Aesop, right? Aesop's fable, right? The morals of the story for children. have led our ideas to only instances that I remember, with the exception of the prayer of Jacob, in which the arrangement is perfectly fair and honorable. So in those Aesop's fables, the poets' works of Horace and Juvenal, see, they're fair. Is an equal exchange. Honorable, according to the author. So this is saying that in Christianity, the relationship between the deity, the moral of the story rather, is not equitable, it's not honorable, it's not fair. Let's continue. The man, a poor, benighted pagan, to be sure, not grace, or rather good sense at least, to wrestle in prayer with his wooden Jehovah to the effect, let's read this quote, bottom of page 126, quote unquote, O Almighty and everlasting God, Zeus, maker of heaven and earth, and of all the visible things and invisible things, all my life long have I been worshiping and adoring your divine majesty, and calling you all the infinitely wise gods and holies and almighties and everlastings and infinites that I could find big words in the dictionary to call you by. So he's flattering the deity, giving him all of these majestic titles and adjectives, okay, to describe him that are really majestic and wonderful. And I and my poor family are getting worse and worse. So he's praying without let up, praying without disease, without ceasing, but yet he's getting poorer and poorer and poorer. His conditions are getting worse and worse and worse. Why? We talked about it at the beginning of this discussion. One, he's mentally distracted. He's not focused. So of course, that's going to affect your performance. It's also going to do what? Make you ineffective. And two, he's relying on the deity to do what he could do himself. He's waiting for God to do it instead of doing it himself. Y'all see it? So he's getting poorer, more stress, more trouble. You know, maybe his consort is upset with him. His heirs lost respect for him, and his kinfolk laughing at him. Oh, y'all know how it goes with our people. How when things start going downhill, they pile up on you. Okay? And I and my poor family are only getting worse and worse, till nothing but starvation stares us in the face. Now, my Lord God, now, my Lord Zeus, though you can live without eating and drinking, I can't. I can't live without eating and drinking. This ain't funny. Though you have no bowels, I have. I need to digest some food. I need to extract some energy so I can have some energy to keep going. Will you then advance me a mortgage? Will you give me a loan on that heavenly inheritance which you have promised us? Yeah. Let me borrow against that heavenly inheritance that you promised. A promise. Give me a loan against it. No, nobody's going to give you a loan on a promise, not even God. But guess what? As a sovereign Moor, living our principles, following the Most High's commandments, you have an inheritance. You got something that's concrete. You're very wealthy. But I'm not going to go further into that. I want to bring it to your attention, the contrast. You religiously people, you have nothing. You have a promise. And that's worthless. All right? But we sovereign Moors, we have a physical a tangible estate, a vast estate. We are extremely wealthy. Let's continue. Will you then advance me alone on that heavenly inheritance which you have promised us? And y'all, by the way, we have an inheritance, right? We need to get it back. Start with declaring your nationality, learning who you are, increase your masculine mental energy. Say but a shilling. This is money, y'all. Say but a shilling, 6 pence, a penny, or a half a penny %. Give me a loan on this promised heavenly inheritance. There's nothing, a big bag of nothing, right? A Macy's bag with nothing in it. To save us from our starvation. That's the end of the quote. All right? And of course he got nothing. Now remember Aesop's fables, Juvenal and Horace poems. There was an even exchange. But in the Gospels, it's no even exchange. It's unfair. It's unjust. It is inequity. Let's continue to the next paragraph, page 127. The prayer was answered, just as all other prayers are answered. And the indignant man, awakening to the reason of a man, so in other words, his prayer was answered with a big fat nothing. He didn't get anything. So the man became indignant, righteously angry, awakened to reason, awakened to the reason of man. So what is that? He got his mind back. See, that kick in the butt, that pain, that suffering, that lack of food to eat, caused him to rethink the power of the deity and his devotion to the deity. It's a waste of time. In fact, it's making me worse off. So now he wakes up to the reason of a man, the intelligent man, connected to reality, seeing the relationship between cause and effect. But you in religion, you don't see it. You don't see the relationship between cause and effect. Your causes and the effects that you're experiencing that you don't want. So now the man he's woken up that the deity has no power. Look at the man's action. The man, he seizes the priest puppet by the leg. The priest puppet is what? Jesus, the Christ figure. Any religious symbol, any religious idol or icon. Seizes it by the leg and dashes him to pieces. Destroys the religious icon just like Abraham did. Just like Abraham did. Destroyed the deities. Having destroyed these deities, Abraham gains the respect and friendship of the Most High, according to the story. In other words, when Abraham said, you know what, these deities have no power. They can't do anything to help me or to hurt me. Why should I give them something? Why should I worship them? So he destroyed them, burned them. And then he got the Most High's approval and respect. Right? So this man destroys the Christian idols. Notice what happens next. Page 127, first paragraph. Away went rags and righteousness. Away went bummy clothes. Away went the poverty and the righteousness. What's the righteousness? These are the set standards of right and wrong established by the church, established by the corporate institutions in your communities, established by the secret society members, which they change according to their social political agendas. So he got rid of the religion in terms of worshiping it, fearing it, hoping in it, praying to it, destroyed the idols. And once he did that, the bummy clothes, the raggedy clothes, the beater, the beater car. Do they still say beaters? The beater car, and the righteousness, this pretentious morality that often has nothing to do with nature, more times than not. That went away. Away went grace and grease. See, you don't need the grace and the grease anymore, right? You don't need the forgiveness. You don't need it. Away went poverty. Away went poverty and prayer. See, without the prayer, now you can focus on whatever your goal is. Okay, now you can get the means. Now, when you're harmonic with nature, you abandon religion, you abandon the deity. Mentally, physically, as I said earlier, now you're harmonic with nature. And you can begin to manifest. And you can take back your birthright. And you can begin to live the blessings. Part of which is what? Tangible or material wealth. Lavish wealth, in fact. Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14, for those of you who think I'm being materialistic or I don't know what I'm talking about, go read it. Before you say anything, go read it. Away went the poverty. Away went prayer. Away went the distractions. Away went the sadness. Away went the wondering why God is not answering my prayers. What am I doing wrong? What do I need to change differently? See, away went all of that worry and stress, which freed you up to be successful in whatever it is you are doing. You don't have that mental baggage to distract you. You don't have the sadness. Whatever you feel is what you produce in your life. You manifest what you feel. So if you're feeling poor, feeling worried, feeling distressed, you get more of that. If you abandon religion and you're feeling powerful, you're feeling like a god that you are, well, guess what? You get the blessings. You get the lifestyle of a god. Deuteronomy 28, 15 through Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14. You get the nobility, the noble status returned back to you. And all the other blessings. Right? The wealth, etc. Let's continue. When he got God out of his house, when he got Zeus out of his house, when he got Isus, when he got Jesus, when he got the Tetragrammaton, Jehovah, Yahoo, Yahweh, Yahuwah, out of his house and from around his neck. Y'all know those emblems or whatever, the medallions with the Tetragrammaton? When he get all of this stuff out of his house, he got the devil out of his house. Now remember, God and the devil are one. I've shown y'all that. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. I've shown you in scripture, and I've shown you astronomically. And I've shown it astronomically. All right? So when he got God out of his house, he got the devil out of his house. The ducats, the dollars, this is money, y'all, the crowns, the half crowns, rolled upon him. He started getting money. when he got God and the devil out of his house. The bacon, the bread, and the beef took the place in the cupboard of Bibles and prayer books. Hold on, y'all. And the parsons, that's the clergy, and the clergy told the people never to go near that profane, wicked man who, pointing to his well-clothed wife, well-fed children, told the parson. So this is what the man said when he got out of religion. And the clergy called him wicked. He pointed to his wife, how fine her clothes are, how well-fed and well-dressed his children are. This is what he said, quote, "We've no more need of your spiritual psychic. You may let the booby hutch." He said, "Get the hell out of here. We don't need you anymore. You're a scammer. The whole gospel is a scam." My battery, let me see how much battery I got left. All right, I'm gonna try to finish this up. Hopefully, we got 3 short paragraphs. Let me let this go by. Almost finished. Half a page. Y'all be patient. Stay with me. All right. Thanks for waiting. So we're going to finish this up, y'all. Last paragraph, page 127. To those who can guess the moral of the fable, the politic or political intention of the fable. See, I didn't make that up. I saw it. So the author here is telling you that there is a political intention to the parable, which is the exact reverse of it that you've been taught by your religious leaders in every respect. Okay? So to those who can guess the moral of the fable, the politic or political intention of the parable, which is the exact reverse of it in every respect, will be easy. Once you know the code, you can crack it easily. The one who is generous, the one who is a generous effort to undeceive and disabuse a priest-ridden, like a rat or rodent-ridden, mice-ridden, right? And gospel-gammand people. What he's saying here is that Christianity is like a rodent, a rat, or mice. Okay? Infested in a house or infested in a city. That's what Christianity is. So there is those like me, like the author here, whose intention is to undeceive you, tell you the truth that the Gospels are telling, tell you the truth, undeceive you, free you from mental bondage of religion, to disabuse you. See, disabuse you. You're being abused right now. Me and others, and this author, his intention was to stop the abuse. Much of which you're abusing yourself, by the way. So we're talking about these people right now. Let's continue. The one is a generous effort to undeceive and disabuse a priest-ridden and gospel-gammon people. You've been tricked, bamboozled, swindled, gospel-gammon people by some great moralist whose name could it be ascertained would deserve to be unrethered in the grateful remembrance of the whole human human species. So of course what he's saying is that that's one group of people who deserve to be remembered. Okay? This other person that he's talking about, or other group of people, is some equally anonymous priestly villain. Priestly villains, priestly plot to degrade the Moors, to debase